I hadn't said her name out loud in 3 years. Not to friends, not to family. Not even to myself in those quiet moments when memory ambushes you without warning. I had trained myself to think around her, to navigate conversations where her name might surface, to build entire mental detours just to avoid that one syllable that carried too much weight. But the moment I saw it printed in the funeral program, my chest tightened in a way I thought I'd forgotten. Because grief doesn't just bring back memories of the dead. Sometimes it resurrects the people you never truly buried. 3 years is long enough to convince yourself you've moved on. It's long enough to date other people, change jobs, rearrange your furniture, adopt new routines. It's long enough to believe that the person who once knew every corner of your heart has faded into pleasant obscurity. But time doesn't erase people, it just teaches you how to live around the empty spaces they left behind. And some spaces, no matter how much you try to fill them, remain stubbornly hollow. The last time we saw each other, we were standing in the doorway of our apartment. Our apartment. The one we'd painted together on a Saturday morning, laughing as we got more paint on ourselves than the walls. The one that held 1,000 small moments that felt insignificant until they became everything we'd lost. Boxes half-packed, labels written in her handwriting on some, mine on others. A physical manifestation of how we'd divided a shared life into yours and mine. Voices raised, not screaming. We never screamed, but that cold, calculated kind of anger that's somehow worse. The kind where every word is chosen specifically to land where it hurts most. Pride louder than love. That was our downfall, really. We said things meant to wound. Not because we hated each other. We could never hate each other. But because we didn't know how to end without bleeding. Because if it didn't hurt, maybe it meant it never mattered, and we needed it to have mattered. I told her she was impossible to reach. That loving her felt like shouting into a canyon and waiting for an echo that never came. She told me I was emotionally unavailable, that I treated vulnerability like weakness and connection like obligation. We were both right and both wrong, both too stubborn to admit either. Then she walked away. Down the hallway, past the photos we'd taken on that trip to the coast, past the bookshelf we'd assembled incorrectly twice before getting it right, past 3 years of accumulated life, and I let her. I stood there, hand on the doorframe, watching her leave, and I did nothing. I told myself it was necessary, that love had run its course, that relationships have natural lifespans, and ours had simply expired. That time would erase her, like rain erasing footprints from sand. Time didn't erase anything. It just made the memories quieter, somehow impossibly heavier. The funeral was for my Uncle Marcus, man who taught me, through the way he lived rather than anything he said, that life is short, that grudges are heavy, that the people you love won't wait forever for you to figure out how to tell them. Lessons I understood far too late. He'd been sick for a while, but death still arrived too soon, doesn't it always? My family gathered in that universal language of grief, dark clothes, hushed voices, uncertain hugs from relatives you only see at weddings and funerals. I walked in late. Traffic, I told myself. But really, I'd sat in my car for 10 minutes, gathering the courage to face a room full of people who'd ask how I was doing and expect an answer that wasn't honest. I sat near the back, half hidden behind a pillar, and then I saw her. Front row. Black dress, simple and elegant, she always had that effortless way about her. Hands folded in her lap, hair different than I remembered, shorter maybe, or just styled differently. 3 years of changes I knew nothing about. Her eyes looked tired, but calm. There was a stillness to her that hadn't been there before. She looked different, not older, though time had touched her gently, but softer. Like someone who had learned how to carry loss without fighting it. It's like someone who had made peace with things I was still running from. And suddenly, this funeral wasn't just about my uncle anymore. My mind raced. What was she doing here? Then I remembered she'd met Uncle Marcus at that family barbecue 4 years ago. He'd loved her immediately, the way he loved anyone who laughed at his terrible jokes and didn't mind his stories that went nowhere. She'd stayed in touch with him after we ended. She'd checked in on him, sent cards, visited when she could. While I'd been avoiding family gatherings where I might have to explain our breakup, she'd been showing up, being present, doing the work of connection that I'd convinced myself was too painful. That realization hit me like cold water. She'd been braver than me. She turned around. Maybe she felt me looking. Maybe it was coincidence. Maybe grief has a way of making us search for familiar faces in unfamiliar pain. And for half a second, the entire room disappeared. No one else existed, not the priest at the pulpit, not the 100 people gathered in grief, not even my uncle, whose life we were supposedly there to honor. Just her eyes meeting mine across a room that suddenly felt impossibly small. Neither of us breathed. I waited for it, the rush of anger or regret, or that complicated tangle of emotions I'd spent 3 years avoiding. I waited for my heart to race or my stomach to drop or any of the dramatic responses I'd imagined if we ever crossed paths again. But none of that came. Just recognition. The kind that says, "You knew me once. I knew you too. We shared something that mattered. That's okay now." She gave a small nod. It's not a smile, not quite, but an acknowledgement. Tiny gesture that contained multitudes. I nodded back. That was it. But it was everything. It was forgiveness without words. It was closure without conversation. It was 3 years of imagined confrontations dissolving into a simple, human moment of seeing each other. Really seeing each other. For the first time since that doorway, without defenses, without scripts, without the weight of what we thought we were supposed to feel. I couldn't focus on the service after that. Words were spoken. Beautiful words about my uncle's life, his generosity, his terrible sense of humor, his love for his family. Words that should have moved me. But my attention kept drifting back to her silhouette 3 rows ahead. The way she dabbed at her eyes during a particularly touching story. The way she held the hand of my aunt, who she barely knew, offering comfort in the way she always had naturally, without performance. She'd always been better at this than me, at being present, at letting people in, loving without keeping score. After the service, people gathered outside on the church steps. That strange liminal space between formal mourning and returning to regular life. Hugs that lasted too long or not long enough. Condolences delivered in voices people saved for funerals. Awkward small talk about the weather, about traffic, about anything except the gaping absence we'd just acknowledged. I stood slightly apart, watching clouds move across a sky that seemed inappropriately beautiful for a day about death. I was about to leave, already forming the excuses I'd give for skipping the reception, when I felt her presence before I saw her. She stood next to me. Not too close, respecting the distance we'd maintained for 3 years. But close enough that I could smell her perfume. It's different than what she used to wear, but somehow still completely her. "I'm sorry for your loss," she said. Warm was steady, gentle, warm in a way that made my throat tight. Not the voice of the woman I'd argued with 3 years ago. Not the voice that had said those final, cutting words. But the voice of someone who had survived things I knew nothing about. Someone who had walked through fire and come out forged into something stronger. "Thank you," I managed. "I didn't know you still kept in touch with him." "He was a good man," she said simply. I didn't want to lose that connection just because. She didn't finish. She didn't need to. Then silence. It's not the uncomfortable silence of strangers searching for common ground. Not the loaded silence of exes with unfinished business. It's just honest, breathable silence. It's the kind that says, we don't need to fill every space with words. We talked. Not about the breakup. Not right away. Some things need time, even when you've had 3 years of it. We talked about the funeral, about the strange poetry the priest had chosen, about how Uncle Marcus would have hated the formality of it all and preferred everyone to share a drink and a laugh in his honor. We talked about how strange it is that death brings people together who spent so much energy avoiding each other while alive. How grief is a gravitational force that pulls us back into orbit with people we thought we'd escaped. We talked about surface things, but underneath something deeper was happening. We were learning each other again, noticing the small changes, the new laugh lines around her eyes, the confidence in how she held herself, the way she no longer apologized before stating an opinion. Eventually, after we'd exhausted the safe topics, she said something that cracked the careful surface we'd been maintaining. I think we were too young to know how to listen. I didn't disagree, because she was right, painfully, obviously right. Back then, we heard each other, our ears worked fine, but we were always preparing our response instead of understanding. Always thinking about what we'd say next instead of absorbing what was being said. Always defending our position instead of considering that maybe we didn't need positions at all. Loved each other, but we didn't know how to listen to each other. And Love without listening is just two people shouting into the void, wondering why they feel so alone. I left the city, she said, looking out at the parking lot rather than at me. 6 months after we ended, I couldn't stay there. Too many memories on every corner. Where did you go? Portland started completely over. New job, new apartment, new everything. I had to learn how to be myself again. Not the person I was with you or the person I was before you. Just me. She paused, smiled a little. It was terrifying. Being alone without feeling abandoned. Learning that solitude isn't the same as loneliness. That I could enjoy my own company without it being a consolation prize for not having someone else's. I felt a strange mix of pride and regret. Pride that she'd done that work. Regret that I hadn't. I did the opposite, I admitted. Stayed in the same apartment for a year, like I was proving something. Then moved, but only 20 minutes away. I stayed busy. New projects, more work, more social events. Anything to avoid being still. Because stillness meant feeling, she said. It wasn't a question. We laughed quietly at how predictable that sounded, how perfectly we'd each chosen exactly the coping mechanism that made sense for who we were. Her running toward change, me running in place. Then she said something that stayed with me, that I'd turn over in my mind for months afterward. I don't regret us anymore. That sentence hit harder than any argument we'd ever had. Not I don't regret leaving you, not I don't regret that it ended, but I don't regret us. The whole thing, the beginning, the middle, the terrible end, the fights and the laughter and the mundane Tuesday evenings that felt like nothing until they became everything. All of it. She didn't regret it. For a long time I did, she continued. Regret us, I mean. It felt easier to decide the whole thing was a mistake, that we were wrong for each other from the start. That every happy moment was just delusion leading to inevitable pain. I did the same thing, I said. We wrote the whole story so it made sense why it ended. But that wasn't true, was it? She asked. We weren't wrong. We just weren't ready. There's a difference. And there it was. The truth we'd both been avoiding for 3 years. We weren't a mistake. We were just mistimed. To people who found something real before we knew how to hold it properly, who loved each other before we learned how to love ourselves. Sometimes the right person arrives at the wrong season of your life, and no amount of wanting can change the harvest time. We didn't talk about getting back together. That possibility hung in the air, unspoken, but neither of us reached for it. We didn't promise anything. Now let's stay in touch, or maybe we can be friends, or any of the things people say when they're not ready to fully let go, but know they should. But something had shifted. Not toward romance, toward understanding. We finally saw each other clearly, without the distortion of hurt, feelings, or wounded pride, or the desperate need to be right, without expectation, without fear. Just two people who had once meant everything to each other, acknowledging that truth without needing to rebuild from it. You seem good, I said eventually. Really good, like you figured something out. I've figured out that there's nothing to figure out, she said with a slight smile. Life just happens. Love comes and goes. Pain teaches you if you let it, that's all. That simple, that complicated, she corrected. And somehow, that made perfect sense. We stood there a while longer, watching people leave. My family was starting to head to my aunt's house for the reception. Your uncle told me something once, she said, after we broke up. I visited him and he knew. I think everyone knew, and, he said. The people we love don't leave us. We carry them differently, that's all. Sounds like him, I said, my voice thick. I think he was talking about your aunt who passed, but it helped me understand us too. You didn't leave me. I didn't leave you. We just carry each other differently now. Sometimes closure isn't a door slamming shut. Sometimes it's a window opening just enough to let peace in. Not enough to see that love doesn't have to last forever to have mattered. That endings don't erase beginnings. That you can honor what was without clinging to what isn't anymore. Outside, before leaving, she hugged me. Not tightly like she was afraid to let go. Not desperately like she was trying to pull something back from the past. Just long enough to say, we mattered. What we had was real. I see you. I honor this. I release this with love. All of that in a simple embrace that lasted maybe 5 seconds, but felt like absolution. I hugged her back, and for the first time in 3 years, I didn't feel that familiar ache, that sense of something missing. that ghost-limb pain of a love amputated. I just felt grateful. "Take care of yourself," she whispered. "You too." Then she walked away again. Down the church steps, across the parking lot, toward a car I didn't recognize, toward a life I wasn't part of anymore. This time, it didn't hurt the same. This time I didn't feel like I was losing her, because you can't lose what you've already honored and released. I stayed a moment longer watching her car disappear into traffic. We didn't fix the past. Can't fix what's already done. The arguments happened. The hurt was real. The ending was painful. We didn't rewrite our story into something prettier or easier to explain, but we honored it. We stood in the truth of what we were and what we became and what will never be again, and we honored it. And sometimes, that's the gift. It's not reconciliation, not rekindled romance, not even friendship. Just acknowledgement, witness, recognition. You were important to me. I was important to you. We shaped each other. Now we're shaped differently because of it. It's okay. Driving home that evening, I thought about timing, how it ruins good love. How two people can be perfect for each other in a different year, a different version of themselves, a different chapter of their lives. How we blame ourselves for things that were never really our fault. How we carry guilt for endings that were simply inevitable. But I also thought about how timing can return things to you. Not as they were. You can never go back. The river keeps flowing. The people you were don't exist anymore. But as something new, something transformed. Not as romance, but as understanding. Not as possession, but as gratitude. Not as regret, but as wisdom. Closure doesn't always mean goodbye. Sometimes it means finally seeing each other as you are, not as you were, not as you wished you'd been, not as you needed each other to be, but as you actually are now, changed, grown, different, and walking away lighter than you arrived. She was right about carrying people differently. I still carry her. In the lessons she taught me about vulnerability, in the ways she challenged me to be better, in the songs that remind me of lazy Sunday mornings, in the understanding that love can be real and still not be enough. But I carry her with gratitude now, not grief, with appreciation, not attachment, with honor, not hunger. And maybe that's what closure really is. Not the absence of feeling, but the presence of peace. Not forgetting who someone was to you, but releasing who you needed them to be. The funeral that day was for my uncle. But in a way, it was also for a version of myself that died 3 years ago in that apartment doorway. It's a version that thought love was about holding on tight enough, when really it's about loving well enough to let go. And sometimes, if you're very lucky, letting go gives you back something even more precious than what you lost. Not the relationship, but yourself. Whole, healed, and finally, at peace. Her name was Sarah, and I can say it now without my chest tightening. Without regret, without longing. Just with the quiet acknowledgement of someone who mattered, someone who still matters, just differently.
Thank you for listening to Cheezy Radio. Stories like this remind us that love isn't always loud. Sometimes it doesn't come with grand gestures or perfect timing. Sometimes it comes quietly through understanding, reflection, and growth. If this story resonated with you, if it reminded you of someone or something you've lived through, you're not alone. Share your thoughts in the comments. Was this a story about closure or about a second chance? Subscribe to Cheezy Radio for real love and relationship stories every single day, because the most powerful stories are the ones that feel a little too real.